Well, hello there. My name is Shannon Cuts, and this is Pearl Cuts. He likes to be in all the videos, whether they happen to be about him or not. So today, I just prepared a very informal video for you to share some of my all-time favorite Redfoot tortoise food groups. Redfoot tortoises in the wild have a diet that consists primarily of grasses and greens, fruits, and what we can politely call carrion, animal waste, poop, and small, slow-moving protein prey like snails and snoozing caterpillars and things like that. Yeah. In a captive situation, where the daily buffet is catered, shall we say, we have the responsibility as keepers for picking and choosing what to feed our precious animals, our precious Redfoot tortoises. And for Malty, this has been a really long process for me. I made a ton of mistakes. If you've checked out some of the other videos or taken our Redfoot Care Quick Start Guide course, you already know that some of the mistakes that I made with Malty resulted in some lasting shell pyramiding and a diagnosis of metabolic bone disease. And so just know that everything that I share with you today has been developed with the help of our fabulous veterinary team at Gulf Coast Avian and Exotics here in Houston, Texas, and most especially with the guidance and one-on-one mentoring of Danielle Inman, who is our herpetologist and the woman who saved Malty's life. And there's more about that in other videos. So these are, I've picked out the kind of the creme de la creme, the most perfect foods that you could ever imagine feeding your Redfoot tortoise. And we'll start with the food category that Malty likes the least, but is the most important for her to have on a daily basis. It keeps her full, it gives her lots of beneficial dietary fiber, it keeps her gut microbiome healthy and happy and thriving, and it gives her lots of opportunities to forage, which is a very enriching activity for a captive Redfoot tortoise who doesn't face some of the same, you could call them threats or challenges or excitements that she might find in the wild. So first up is our dandelion greens, and I'm so thankful to our local Sprouts for stocking these wonderful greens. I guess I must have made so many calls to the local Sprouts asking every week whether they have dandelion greens in stock, that now they have decided that there is a tremendous demand for them. And the last time I went in, there was literally a stack of them this high. These are dandelion greens. There's nothing exotic about them. I'm gonna just show you really up close. You find them growing all over your yard, usually in the spring and the summer. They produce these wonderful little yellow flowers, and they are just incredibly nourishing and nutritious for Redfoot tortoises. They're a food that Redfoots would normally find in a wild setting in many places throughout their natural range in northern South America. And they have a really great phosphorus to calcium ratio and very low in oxalic acid, which is a calcium leaching property in some greens that can really interfere with Redfoot tortoise shell development and healthy, strong bones. So dandelion greens is my go-to. She gets them every day. Turnip greens are another fabulous food for Redfoot tortoises. I can't find these very easily in an organic format. Unfortunately, these came from HEB, as you can see. And what it means for me, as far as even living in such an enormous city as Houston, Texas, is I end up having to kind of go to different grocery stores or different grocers for different things nearly every single week. And that's just one of the many commitments that I'm happy to make on behalf of my love, who brings so much joy and enrichment and fulfillment into my life. Not to mention chances to make many, many new neural connections every single day, because there's always something new to learn. Turnip greens, like dandelion greens, they have a great phosphorus to calcium ratio with very low oxalic acid. And, you know, just like with us, Redfoot tortoises will eat partially when they can. And so, you know, if I put out an enormous chunk of a juicy fruit and then a big handful of turnip greens or dandelion greens, guess what my little lady is gonna go and eat, and she's gonna fill up on. And so it's like, it's not unlike me, you know, give me a choice between, you know, steamed turnip greens and a tasty fig, and guess what I'm gonna want. So it's my job to make sure that I stack her plate accordingly and make sure that she eats the right ratio of the right things. There's two different schools of thought in terms of feeding Redfoot tortoises. Well, there's many schools of thought, but two of the main ones that you'll find online are either just a straight 60 to 70% grasses and greens, and then kind of 20 to 30% fruits and some seasonal vegetables, and then, you know, 5 to 10% protein. So that's one and you know, and that it really, it's not that one of these is better than the other. They're just different schools of thought. And the other is to feed kind of a seasonal diet that mimics the natural wet, dry season of northern South America. And that would look more like trying to vary the diet based on what she would have access to, what a Redfoot tortoise would have access to in the wild. I follow the first recommendation, just because I feel like where we live here in Houston, Texas, is already so similar in many ways to the subtropical climate that she would have in her native range, and it's also just more intuitive for me. But it's not like there's, you know, one better. It's just kind of what makes sense for you. So those are my two staple greens. I also like to feed romaine lettuce and spring mix, non-spinach spring mix. So just, you know, leafy green and red lettuces are a fabulous addition to the diet. Cilantro, parsley, which she actually has started to like now that she's older. And, you know, the occasional endive or kale is okay, just in very, very limited quantities, because those can be higher in the oxalic acid and not quite as ideal in terms of their calcium to phosphorus ratio. So, and there's more information on the site about that as well. So let's move on to the fruits, which is Maltie's favorite. Well, one of her many favorites. Maltie loves to eat, so she has a lot of favorites. I have yet to find, well, okay, except for aloe vera leaf, which she once spit out, I have yet to find something that it doesn't seem to be a favorite. But the go-to, the gold standard, the ultimate holy grail of Redfoot tortoise fruits is the humble papaya. Now, papaya seeds and papaya, just the papaya, the black seeds that you have inside the papaya, those should be removed. Those can be toxic. Well, those are toxic. You can feed the peel as long as you feel comfortable. Sometimes papayas, when they ripen, they can get really moldy looking, and so just because we can, I like to remove those things. I don't think Maltie would be as picky, but that's just me. But you can feed the peel on fruit. I would say remove the peel for a hatchling or a juvenile, just because they probably won't be able to bite into it. But older tortoises will certainly give it a rousing go and really enjoy it and get some nutrients. So this is the holy grail. Second on my list is the fig. just because for a similar reason, papaya has no oxalic acid, and it's got a fabulous calcium to phosphorus ratio. Figs are a really close runner-up. As a side benefit, they're delicious and really nourishing, and both of these fruits are actually surprisingly low in sugar as far as a fruit goes. Now, a fruit that's a little higher in sugar but also has no oxalic acid and a very good calcium to phosphorus ratio is our grocery store grapes. Just green grapes, red grapes. They're very high in sugar, so they give them a little bit less frequently, but anything I can get into her that's got an optimal calcium to phosphorus ratio and low to no oxalic acid is a win in my book, as long as I'm kind of following my own food pyramid or food ratios. Now, Maltese hands down favorite, the ultimate in gourmet dining experiences is got to be protein, and that can be, you know, great or gross depending on, you know, what your idea of a delicious protein snack is. For Malty, the neighbor's dog poop is just as delicious as, you know, as an organic steamed salmon fillet. So, you know, obviously I'm really watching her closely when we're out on the lawn together, but a lot of keepers like to feed Missouri tortoise diet, and you can see this. Malty has never really developed much of a taste for it, and because she gets, it can be high in protein, and for hatchlings and juveniles it does need to be soaked because they just aren't strong enough yet in their bite to and it can cause a choking hazard or an impaction risk if they swallow it and it's hard, because these are actually hard little pellets. I've heard some keepers describe them as the dog food of the tortoise world, which is actually totally apropos. But she gets a lot of beneficial dietary fiber from the greens and the fruits that she eats, and she doesn't really need a high protein diet. In fact, that too much protein too early in life is one of the many issues that we now face that we're kind of trying to reverse in her ongoing health care. So it's really, I mean, a lot of this stuff kind of boils down to your individual tortoise, their age, their gender, how you're keeping them, where you're keeping them, their daily habits, how much exercise and enrichment they get, any health problems that come up, you know, it just whether or not they're gravid or sexually mature. You know, gravid means incubating eggs, essentially, and so it just, you know, these are just some staples that you just cannot go wrong with these as kind of the foundation of your diet. For Malty, I do feed tidbits of plain steamed organic salmon just to give her a little protein. If I'm having a hard time getting her to eat her greens, what I'll do is I've got some frozen salmon that my mom made just for her and my box turtle Bruce, and so I'll just take little tiny tidbits and I'll kind of sprinkle them around the greens, or I'll just take a little of the juice, the watery juice, and I'll just kind of make a salad dressing, and then I have no problem getting her to eat her greens. So if you have any trouble, you might want to try that. And then for a special treat, I offer her, as you can see, we're almost out of the Fluker's freeze-dried, crispy, crunchy mealworms, which she just adores. And I can get her to do just about, I mean, if you are of a mindset that you want to try to train your Redfoot tortoise, I would highly suggest these. They don't actually, they are kind of high in, they're very high in protein. They're also a little high in fat, 25%, which is, you know, I mean, protein is kind of par for the course. So these are just, they're a special treat, and she just goes crazy for them. She will climb up in my lap. She will act like I am her long lost genetic twin. She's just, it's really cute. And you can see some videos of that on our channels as well. Now there are some supplements that our veterinary team has recommended to me, and again, how often you use these supplements isn't something I feel comfortable addressing, because it really will shift, especially depending on the age and whether you're using synthetic ultraviolet light as the UVA, UVB light source, or your tortoise is outside in the sun, in which case supplementation is just really, I would really talk with your exotic veterinarian about that. But these cuttle bones, and you can also find them in a format where they're called turtle bones, but they're basically just they're just calcium blocks, and they just kind of gnaw on them. Malty loves hers. My box turtle Bruce stays outdoors full time. I've offered these to him, and he doesn't seem to recognize them, which is totally expected considering he's a semi-wild rescue, and I got him as an adult. My cockatiel, who you met earlier, Pearl, he loves his, and he always has one available. It's recommended to just make these available. Tortoises can be very intuitive about seeking out the nourishment that they need. This can be kind of it can be kind of less intuitive if they're in a captive setting and they're not being fed, a nutrition first diet. Like for instance, if I just give Malty these mealworms just because I think it's cute, or because she's been a really good girl, or she's had a really hard day, or she's had to go to the vet, that's not the same thing as her being out in the wild and just having to forage up anything she needs to stay healthy and just to survive. So that's all I mean by that. But I still do generally make one of these available to Malty to just use as she sees fit. Another option is the Repti Calcium or similar products. This is just a calcium with D3 added. They come with and without D3, and it just really, again, depends on what kind of light that you're using. If your tortoise is being kept indoors, or if they've got outdoor access to the most perfect light source, which is the sun, in which case they may not need the D3. So, but then again, I am not a veterinarian. I have made a ton of mistakes with my Malty. This has come from 6 years of working intensely with veterinary teams and trying to save my little girl's life, and now reverse metabolic bone disease and get her healthy. And so these are just your building blocks. These, everything from here can and probably will need to be and should be customized for your individual Redfoot tortoise. Finally, this is not Redfoot tortoise specific, but it's a powder I use both with my Redfoot Malty and with my box turtle Bruce. It's called TNT, Total Nutrition for Tortoises. You can get it at Carolina Pet Supply, and I just sprinkle some of it on their food. With Malty in particular, I try to sprinkle it on the food that I know she's going to go for the most. So in case she does get full before she gets to the greens, I know she's going to get a good helping of it on her papaya, and I use it at almost every meal. For me, there's so many schools of thought as far as how often to feed your Redfoot tortoise, how much to feed your Redfoot tortoise per meal. Should you feed more than once a day? These are the kinds of questions that make for vigorous debate among tortoise enthusiasts and keepers and breeders and experts and herpetologists. They are also the stuff of a lifetime of caring for these beautiful, exotic, difficult to keep animals. And so it's important to just dig deep and learn all that you can. I have stacks of books that I've read, and I'm always asking for advice. I'm always asking for guidance. I'm always researching online and looking for resources that look really reputable and trustworthy that can give me good perspectives. But for me, because Malti in particular is so food centric, and Redfoots are they're incredibly smart. I mean, they can outperform primates and canines in certain computer aided intelligence tests, as long as the food motivation is there, as long as we've got the right tasty treat as a reward, they will perform admirably. I mean, incredibly. They're quick to learn. They have incredibly long memories. So, if all that to say, if I don't give Malti something to forage, she will find something, and it probably won't be something I want her to eat. So I do provide greens daily. There's almost never a day that I don't offer her something from my garden, i.e. the refrigerator. Actually, on that note, Malti knows where the refrigerator is in our house, and she will go there and bite the door if she's hungry. I mean, they're just incredibly, and you can actually see some videos of that on our channels as well. It's really cute. So I just make sure she has greens every day, and then every other day I will provide some fruits and vegetables. You notice I don't really have any vegetables per se in the staple list of foods. There aren't any that I would recommend on it, like personally for me, because I'm just really focusing on greens, but definitely like seasonal mushrooms, asparagus, zucchini and yellow squash are favorites of hers, pumpkin, which are sweet potato, so some, which is more of a root vegetable. Carrots have a lot of sugar, but they can provide some beneficial antioxidants. So that's a little bit outside the scope of this video, but not to totally ignore vegetables. They just aren't quite as much of a focus because we're focusing so heavily on the greens here. So, that's what I do. And then about once a week, so every day she gets greens, and then every other day she'll get, some kind of a fruit or a vegetable or both. And then about once a week I'll give her, a protein. Either, a little bit of salmon on her greens, or maybe a little bit of tinned organic, no salt, no oil tuna, or some people like to give Missouri, or, really high quality cat or dog food if your tortoise needs a little more protein, which mine does not. And then organ meats can be great, which is something I'll be starting with Malti here shortly. That's some guidance I just got from a herpetologist, Danielle, and so we'll be looking into that. So that's just kind of my overview. And then as far as how much to give your tortoise, that's, if you think about a tortoise, like Malti is about the size of, the iPhone camera that I am filming this on. It says she's about, that big. She's about half the size of this pipe, I guess you would say. And so, and her little stomach is probably, a quarter of the size of that, if maybe an eighth of the size of that. So, she can power through a big stack of greens, but there's, that's more fibrous than it is, nutrient rich. And so she can have plenty of activity chewing and actually not be taking in a ton of calories. So for me, it's like if the portions of fruit and vegetables is any bigger than kind of what I can fit in the palm of my hand, I'm probably gonna feed too much. And again, we're not feeding that every day, and she is burning some energy because what I do is she's got a large outdoor enclosure, and so I just kind of I hide little pieces here and there, so she actually has to go, she has to get a workout in before she can have her snack. So I hope that this has been helpful for you, and that it gives you some insights about, how to structure a Redfoot Tortoise weekly feeding plan. This is one of the most confusing and stressful parts, for me anyway, of keeping a turtle or a tortoise, and it's also one of the areas where there's the most debate and discussion and disagreement. And so this is what I do. and I hope it will be informative and encouraging for you and supportive. And if you have more questions about feeding your Redfoot tortoise, please let me know. I can always run them by Danielle and then our wonderful herpetologist and the woman who saved my Redfoot Tortoise Maltese life, and I can get back with you with a good, high quality answer. So just let me know how we can be of service, and you can find lots of cute videos of Pearl on our channel too, at loveandfeathersandShells.com and redfoottortoisecare.com. Alrighty, sending you all my love. I look forward to hearing from you.